I really love the way that vocal chamber music allows you to bring voice and instrument together as real equals. That I don't think happens in any other medium. Voice and orchestra is very exciting. Voice and piano can have its rewards too, but in a way, in both of those situations for which there's vast amounts of repertoire, there's certain very clear expectations about what the voice does and what the accompanying instrument or ensemble does. Voice, flute, cello, and guitar, there's no preconceptions. Two voices and what was Kingfisher songs? Two voices, flute, percussion, and cello. There's no repertoire for that combination. There's no preconceptions about what it might be. And I love the games of hide and seek that you can play, where voice and cello blend, the two voices blend, the two voices are opposed to one another, but each paired with instruments. That's an incredibly rich space for what I would call orchestration on the detailed level. I think when you're dealing with a singing voice, you're always dealing with a character. Especially in solo music, I think it's diffused when you're dealing with choral writing. But it's obviously the case when you're dealing with opera, of course, but even in non-operatic contexts, you're dealing with a character, and also you're dealing with a person on stage delivering that in a way that you can sometimes at least take the cellist away from behind the cello and just compose for the cello. You can't take the mezzo-soprano away from behind the voice. And I've been really lucky to have written most of the solo vocal music that I've written for voices that I know really well. Yourself and Alison, but also Jane Sheldon. More recently in the opera, I was writing for singers who, in one case, Jessica Rizzoti, I'd heard her voice in performance many times. For Mitch and Brenton, I didn't know their voices before starting the piece, but I was really lucky to have had them come and sing the first scene of the opera while I was still working on the second scene. And from then on, I wasn't writing for mysterious tenor and mysterious baritone. I was writing for Brenton and Mitch. And, hopefully these pieces that could be taken up by other singers in the future, but somehow having a particular voice to write for makes it all that much easier. I think part of why I enjoy writing for the voice is that I've been a choral singer a lot. There was actually a period of my career where I wrote nothing but vocal music, for almost nothing but choral music, actually, for a period of about 5 or 6 years while I was in the US. That was it was just practicalities. They were the opportunities that I had, and so I responded to the opportunities that I had. I was very glad after having done that to come back to instruments, but I would say up until that point, I'd seen voice as somewhat problematic in that I'd developed a fairly sophisticated modernist instrumental style in I guess this would be in my sort of like late 20s. There's probably a period, I couldn't give you exact dates, but I think there'd probably be a period of about sort of 6, 7, 8 years, and maybe longer, where I wrote very little vocal music, like a piece here, a piece there. And one of the reasons was I felt slightly uncomfortable with the notion that I was developing this sort of instrumental style that didn't necessarily translate immediately easily to vocal music. Then when I started writing sort of primarily vocal music for that particular period, I was working with choirs, and mostly with amateur choirs. So that meant actually that it really enforced the fact that I couldn't take, for example, the way that I was doing with pitch in a modernist instrumental language directly over to choral singing. It couldn't actually, there wasn't a sufficient meeting point. So I was actually slightly uncomfortable about having a sort of a bifurcation in my musical language at that point. I got around it by adding complexity in other ways, principally by dealing with the layering of text and the different languages, as I've already sort of spoken about. So I found ways of addressing my desire for subtlety and complexity in ways that didn't necessarily require great feats of sort of intervallic gymnastics and rhythmic sort of intricacy on the part of the performers. From the Hungry Waiting Country is actually a really important piece for me, in that it's the piece where I actually had an opportunity to write for professional singers and professional singers who were really committed to new music for the first time, maybe ever. And in that piece, all of a sudden, it's like, okay, now I can see how to fit the jigsaw puzzle pieces together. It's the point where a whole lot of things that had been sort of slightly separated in what I was doing musically suddenly sort of come into alignment for the first time. Prior to From the Hungry Waiting Country, a lot of that choral music that I was writing was unaccompanied. And being able to write for instruments and voices together was not something I'd done all that much. And so, you know, the instrument and voice together thing really excites me. You know, I do still occasionally write a cappella pieces, but it's not what really sort of like gets me going. It's the voice instrument interface that I find really exciting, and the way that instruments can play a role in delivering text and in portraying text, and also the way that voices can play hide and seek with instruments and become part of an instrumental texture.